Coming up on this week's edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
We'll examine how NCBA determines its policy priorities and why this producer-driven process is important to the success of the beef industry. Plus, details on a great product that can help you fight parasites in your herd.
And now, NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kate Maher. When asked, most beef producers will say the value of belonging to an organization like NCBA is the strong voice it provides in Washington, D.C. on behalf of the cattle industry. That was on display in April as NCBA president and Minnesota producer Don Schiefelbein testified before the U.S. House Agriculture Committee about issues in the cattle markets. Schiefelbein also explained to the lawmakers that his testimony was based on policy decisions made by the producers he represents. Joining us now is Gene Copenhaver, a Virginia cattle producer who also serves as the vice chair of NCBA's policy division. Gene, Don mentioned the policymaking process of NCBA in his testimony ahead of Congress. You've been a grassroots advocate and in that process a long time. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, and it is truly a grassroots process. Having served as vice chair and chair of international trade and tax and credit for the last 8 years, I've seen that process at work. The process begins at the local state affiliate level, probably lower than that. The local county cattlemen groups or an individual comes to the state affiliates. The state affiliates does propose policy to the national level. We meet twice a year to talk about that policy in our committees. All the committees are grassroots committees from across the nation. The policy goes to the committees in February at our national convention, and then again at midsummer. Whatever is decided in February is interim policy until the summer meeting, and then at the summer meeting, whatever other new policy or policy that has come from the February meeting is talked about at that time. In October every year, there's a policy ballot sent out to every NCBA member in the United States. That ballot is processed. They voted and processed, and that becomes our policy book after that is approved.
A lot of voices along the way that have an impact on this. So how do volunteer leadership, as you as a volunteer leader, how do you support that policy that's set forth by the members through that process?
Well, after we get the policy book, and then we go over the policy book as in volunteer leadership, and we work with our lobbyists in Washington, D.C., the 11 great lobbyists we have up there. They depend on it to be in policy before they can enact anything. As leadership, we have to see if we're covered with policy before we can go forward in a lot of those areas.
So it's so important to have your voice heard along the way from the county level up in the policymaking process, but it's also equally as important to be engaged at the state and national level in terms of state representatives in Congress. Give us your perspective on that in terms of producers getting engaged with their representatives.
Yeah, not only state, but local. I mean, there's a lot of local things there that is different. We have so many different production systems in the United States, and it is so different from area to area, and I'm learning a lot more. Being from the East and what's going on in the West is somewhat different lots of times. But going on to the state, I mean, there's a lot of state issues that are different throughout the country, and you need to be there with the state representatives and have a relationship with those state representatives. Nationally, we have so many national issues that we all need to get behind. We have our fights within the industry, but I would say 90% of everything we do agree on. It's the 10% we don't agree on. How we were all looking for the same result, but sometimes we will have different ways to get to that result.
You make a good point about all wanting to end up in the same place, which is a better beef industry, and there's strength in numbers to help that happen. Yes. Talk about the importance of a strong membership base to support those efforts in DC.
It's very important. With NCBA being the largest and oldest organization in the country, we have something there that we can really build on, and actually we're growing our organization right now. I think in the last 2 years we've got over 1,000 new members up, and numbers matter. Because votes matter, and individual votes with Congress, either a Senate side or House of Representatives, one vote can make a big difference. So we need to be all encompassing the United States to get those votes. And we need everybody, every region, in NCBA needs to be proactive with that.
Yeah. And I know you've been really active in your state and local organizations throughout the industry and now involved with NCBA. Why do you volunteer your time to serve as in a leadership role?
I had two good examples. My parents, both of us very involved in the cattle industry. My dad was Virginia's rep on the board of directors for 10 years. And they've always been pushing us to be involved, me and my sisters, and like I push my kids today. But if you're going to be in business and you're in the business to make the money, you better be at the table.
Well, Gene, thanks for the time you do give us and the industry. We're all better for it. Appreciate you. To support the work being done for the beef industry, join Gene, Don, and others by becoming a member of NCBA. By doing so, you'll be sustaining the work of NCBA in defending and advocating for the cattle industry in Washington, D.C. It's easy and important to do, so just call 866-233-3872 or visit the website ncba.org. Still ahead, we've got details on a valuable tool you can use in the fight against parasites.
A lot of interest on this year's corn crop, obviously. What does it mean when we have La Nina and the weather pattern for the Corn Belt this summer? We'll talk about that in this week's Weather Watch.
From the very beginning, Ritchie has been dedicated to one thing: helping people deliver fresh, constant water to their animals. Today's Ritchie waterers rely on a valve design that remains much the same as it was in 1921. It's a simple idea. Do it right, and the rest will take care of itself. We never set out to create a company that would be around for 100 years. We just wanted to create something great.
Hi everybody, I'm Tom Elliott with John Deere.
Pasture to plate. When it comes to creating a better future for the beef industry, we're all in this together.
Cattle producers are always on the lookout for things that could have a negative impact on the health and profitability of their herd. But sometimes it's what you can't see that hurts your bottom line. Cattlemen to Cattlemen reporter Brian Baxter explains how internal parasite control is the cornerstone of any good animal health program.
Success in producing and raising healthy, profitable cattle often hinges on the proper management of internal parasites. A good parasite control program can help each animal perform to its full potential.
Producers need to be concerned about deworming programs because parasites rob nutrients and efficiency from cattle. It steals profits from the producer.
But just how much can internal parasites impact an animal's health and growth? That's the question veterinarian Mark Turney wanted to answer.
What drove this was actually some problems that we were seeing in local producers. We were seeing cattle that towards the end of summer were just unthrifty. And we were thinking, oh, what disease process is going on? And sometimes it's the simplest things. And a simple thing as our parasite control wasn't right. And so it got us to thinking, what can we do? What can we implement that can help this process?
Dr. Turney conducted an on-pasture deworming trial in stocker cattle to try and find some answers to his parasite questions.
We followed two groups of cattle that were separated. There was 50 in each group. They were grazed during this 73-day period, and they were both groups were treated identical, except group 1 was fed at day 28 and then at day 56, a feed-through Safeguard dewormer.
For years, Safeguard has been the cornerstone for many effective animal health programs. Dr. Turney saw the difference firsthand at the end of his study.
We weighed the cattle in, weighed the cattle out, ended up being about 21 pounds difference in about 70 some odd days. Ended up being 0.3 pounds a head a day. Huge difference. We're here to produce beef as efficiently as we can. That's what drives us home in the end of the day. How efficient can I be? And what we saw is that we're able to take a product that costs roughly $2 or so for a 5-weight calf, and we can give that product twice, and we can turn around and make it reap $35, $40. That is efficiency.
And there was an Iowa State study that was recently done that showed that if you apply a lot of these animal health improvement technologies, there's about a $274 improvement in value. And of that, $201 was attributable to deworming. So just that alone is a big boost for a small investment on the deworming side of things.
Safeguard comes in several different forms, but they all provide top-notch control against internal parasites. Dr. Turney's study used a feed-through, which requires relatively little labor and no extra cattle handling.
One of the benefits of a feed form or mineral form of dewormer, like was used in Dr. Turney's study, is that it's an easy way to put it out. It's convenient, less labor, just put it through. Cattle are used to eating feed. They come in, they eat it. There's no refusal associated with it, and you get a success with that type of deworming.
One way to make sure you're getting the best results from your dewormer is through a fecal egg count reduction test. These tests analyze egg counts in manure to help producers determine if their cattle need to be dewormed or how well their current deworming program is working.
So many times we take that leap of faith and go, okay, I'm giving a dewormer, and you just go at it without really having any information behind it. So one of the simple things to do is to do some of these fecal egg count reduction tests, to go in there and take these samples and actually be able to say, hey, what do I have a parasite burden? Do I need to be concerned about this?
By knowing where you stand, you know if your deworming program is working. And if it's not, then it's time to go back to the drawing board and see why it's failing and make adjustments from there.
When it comes to battling internal parasites, timing your deworming treatment to combat the life cycle of the parasites is critical. A fecal egg count reduction test can help with this, which also was seen in Dr. Turney's deworming trial.
Every 14 days we were doing fecal egg reduction tests on both groups, and what we saw was pretty shocking. We actually saw that we were seeing at day 56, we were seeing this massive climb of parasites. And exactly was so much sooner than we ever initially thought it would be.
So the key takeaways that I got to see from Dr. Turney's study was that we would often suspect that you have a much longer time of protection by using one of these dewormers, especially if you use two types of dewormers. And we're finding out that the more we look at this, we've seen it in other studies as well, that in a shorter period of time, cattle are being reinfested with these parasites and reinfest in the pasture. And so we often have to, different times of the year, especially like late spring or summer, we often have to apply another deworming to these cattle.
Cattle producers can now request a fecal egg count reduction test kit free from Merck Animal Health.
Merck created this fecal egg reduction test kit, and that's all of our sales reps have it available. It's free for producers and veterinarians to use. We collect 20 samples. It's just a random sample of fresh manure on the pasture, and that gives a representation of what's going on at a herd level. And 14 days later, we do it again and see if there's a reduction. And Merck is maintaining a database, and they've been doing thousands and thousands of samples since 2001. So we have a very large database that we can dig into and see what the trends are as far as effectiveness of the different type of dewormers out there.
The fecal egg reduction test is advantageous, and particularly working through a company like Merck, where they actually provide these products and this service for nothing. It's able to come through and be able to see how these products actually work and how your deworming program is working. Any producer, I think, should be able to do that. Before we start talking about refusion, talk about that, what do we have? What do we know? And if we're going to make that decision to deworm those cattle, is the product we're choosing actually working?
You can use any formulation of Safeguard at any point in your deworming process. Your veterinarian or your local Merck representative can help you make the best choice for your farm or ranch.
So the role a veterinarian plays is being able to run some of these tests, receive the data, analyze it, and understand what's going on being boots on the ground, seeing how the cattle are performing, visiting with the producer, getting an idea of their goals and how to apply this the right way and give proper advice to make sure that we keeping the health of the cattle at the forefront.
Reporting from Tennessee, I'm Brian Baxter for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
If you want to learn more about Safeguard or any of Merck's full lineup of products, just visit their website, mahcattle.com. And to get a free fecal egg count reduction test, contact your veterinarian or Merck Animal Health representative. Still ahead, we'll take you to the Cattlemen's Congress in Oklahoma and explain why this stock show has become a must-see event for beef producers. That story when we come back. Stay with us.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, CEO of MyPillow. Retailers, shopping channels, and now even banks have tried to cancel myself and MyPillow. Well, during these times, your support has meant everything to us. So my employees and I want to personally thank each and every one of you by passing the savings directly on to you. We're selling the best products ever for the best prices ever. For example, we have my standard size MyPillow, regularly $69.98, now only $19.98 with your promo code. Or you can get custom fit with my premium queen size MyPillows, regularly $79.98, now just $29.98. Or my king size, regular $89.98, now just $34.98. So go to mypillow.com now and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below to receive this exclusive offer. If you do it right now, I'm going to include a free gift with your purchase. Thank you and God bless.
Time now for Weather Watch with meteorologist Matt Makins.
Welcome to another Weather Watch. I'm Matt Makins. You're about to receive in your mailbox your National Cattleman for June. And within that article, there's been some interesting information recently, how it ties into the overall La Nina pattern and what that may mean for the Corn Belt and our corn prices as we go later throughout the season. So a lot to address. Let's get started with what you're about to read in those newspapers. And you're going to talk about how wind events have been increasing, and that's due to La Nina. In April, we had substantially stronger wind events, especially over the northern high plains, but pretty much most of the country, with the exception of the extreme coastlines, did have more wind events and stronger wind events in April and throughout much of early May as well, due to a La Nina pattern. All ties together. You compare La Nina years to El Nino years, much windier as you approach the La Nina pattern, much calmer in El Nino. So some big differences there just beyond temperatures or precipitation. Wind is also part of these patterns we discuss so much here on Cattlemen to Cattlemen. The distinct La Nina pattern does continue. And what do I mean by that? I mean the precipitation across the country. When we have La Nina, you look for drought areas over the southwest into the south. That was certainly the case in April and in May, where precipitation was bone dry in those areas. The storm track during La Nina tries to favor the Pacific Northwest at times, the northern plains, and then parts of the east. That's the storm flow during La Nina. Now, what does this mean in terms of the Corn Belt? Certainly there is an impact. So let's just focus on the Corn Belt for a moment. I've outlined it here based on USDA's outline for the Corn Belt regions. As you look at La Nina years from the summer months, June through August, where are we likely drier than average? And that's most of the Corn Belt. There may be some near average folks and some surplus areas, but by and large, La Nina brings not only wind events, but also dry conditions. For example, the coloration here on the map, that represents upwards of 1 inch to 2 inches drier than normal over the 3-month span. If you look at the same map in terms of, say, a percentage, it's not quite as strong. You'd still be within somewhat of a normal range, but to put actual numbers, 1 inch or 2 of water short during the course of summer due to La Nina. Of course, it comes down and boils down to the timing of everything. Timing, again, this summer will be critical for the corn crop. Until next time, I'm Matt Makins.
Stock shows play an important role for beef producers. Russell Nimitz has a look at a newer show in Oklahoma that's already a big hit.
Although the first Cattlemen's Congress was held in January of 2021, this Oklahoma City-based stock show quickly became a popular event for members of the beef industry. In fact, Cattlemen's Congress is one of the few good things to come out of the COVID-19 pandemic.
In the fall of 2020, the onset, COVID-19 really ramping up. Several livestock shows across the country canceled their shows. There were some real leaders in the industry that just stepped up and thought Oklahoma was a good place to maybe have a replacement show. And so that's really where Cattlemen's Congress got its start.
We contacted the state fairgrounds to see if they had any dates available, because this is a venue that historically is just loaded up with horse events. And they said, yeah, they had this particular time open in early January. And then we tried to supply the exhibitors, the cattle people, with what they wanted.
And those efforts paid off, because that first Cattlemen's Congress was so popular, they just had to do it again.
We thought it was going to be a one and done deal, just a stand in. But people seemed to like it, so they started asking questions during and after the show. Would you guys please do it this next year? So we had a lot of support also from the governor's office and from the Secretary of Ag, and so we said, what the heck, let's try it again.
It turned into such a success that people wanted to come back, and they asked us, are we having this again next year? And so it wasn't by the end of the show, and I think the leaders of Cattlemen's Congress had already decided that we were going to try to do this again next year.
Cattlemen's Congress is specifically designed for breeders across North America to gather, showcase, and market their elite cattle genetics to purebred and commercial producers.
Cattle people in the purebred business, they not only need a place to exhibit their livestock, but they also need a place to market them, either private treaty or through auctions. And so we've tried to provide them a venue to also have their cattle sales and generate some income.
Really, that's what Cattlemen's Congress is about, marketing cattle genetics, the crossroads of an intersection of cattle genetics and cattle breeders and ranchers across the country having an opportunity to meet with others in their industry and sell their genetics.
We brought 21 head last year. 10 of those that we had here sold in their production sales to contacts we made here. You know, the traffic through there, being able to pull those cattle out and display those cattle for these people. You know, we just made a lot of connections that we wouldn't have reached with other media.
Cattlemen's Congress also offers producers education, livestock judging contests, and a very impressive trade show.
Trade show's big. In fact, we kind of run out of space and room. We had more demand than we really had space, so we're growing it. And we will have a prospect steer and heifer show, as well as a market beef show. And then the junior shows here have been big. The Herefords exhibited over 300 in their junior show. Angus exhibited over 300 in their junior show. Simmentals are on their way in, and they have a lot of junior entries as well.
We're excited to be here. We're excited to have our national show here. Really just create an event for all cattlemen across the nation, serving their needs in a variety of ways, whether it's juniors or their grandpa here trying to sell bulls.
Now, Oklahoma City is often called the crossroads of the cattle industry, so it's no surprise that Cattlemen's Congress has been a hit.
If you take Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, those are the three largest beef cow-calf states in the United States, and so we're really close. Then Nebraska and Kansas are big as well. And so we're really centrally located to a lot of the beef cow industry in the U.S.
We're right in the heart of cattle country. We've got commercial producers, lots of seed stock producers in this area. Where we're hosting the show is easy access off of 3 different interstates. You can be here, get on the grounds and unload, plenty of parking. The facility has been great, and we're just excited that they're able to host us.
Oklahoma City has been a great place for the Cattlemen's Congress. It's easy to get to, but I can just come and enjoy it and know that I'm going to be taken care of as a cattleman.
And thanks to the success of Cattlemen's Congress, it's now a tradition for members of the beef industry to ring in the new year in Oklahoma.
The exhibitors have liked it, and when we started, we said we want to make it a cattle show for cattle people. And so, you know, it seems like there's plenty of interest to keep it going strong.
We're just going to try to keep growing and expanding and really pushing to just improve the quality of beef cattle across the country and give seed stock commercial producers an opportunity to sell, market, and really mainly market their genetics.
What a setup, what a bunch of guys. I mean, this is a first-class run operation. I'll tell you what, if you're an ag person and you want to come find the cutting edge genetics, this is the place to do it.
From Cattlemen's Congress in Oklahoma City, I'm Russell Nemitz for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
If you're interested in attending next year's show in Oklahoma City, you can find information and a schedule of events at the website cattlemenscongress.com. Still ahead on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll discuss mental health in rural America and let you know where you can go for help. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
When it comes to creating a better future for the beef industry, we're all in this together. Because we're connected from pasture to plate, made stronger with common goals to protect our resources, our animals, and our people. Let's continue to build a better future together.
Did you know you can get reimbursed for attending cattle industry educational events? The Rancher Resilience Grant helps cattle producers attend valuable programs such as Cattlemen's College and Stockmanship and Stewardship training sessions. Local, state, and national events qualify for the grant, and successful applicants can receive money back to help cover registration fees and hotel expenses. To apply for the Rancher Resilience Grant, go to ncba.org and click on the Producer tab.
May was Mental Health Awareness Month, but for people living in rural communities, mental health is an important issue all year round. In recent years, a number of organizations have started to focus more on mental health and mental health resources for everyone living in rural America. And joining me now is the founder of one of those groups, Jeff Winton of Rural Minds. Jeff, tell us why you founded Rural Minds.
Rural Minds was launched in October of last year in memory of my 28-year-old nephew, Brooks, who died by suicide. He worked here on our family dairy farm in upstate New York, where I'm talking to you from, and had evidently been struggling with different types of mental illness, and no one in my family was aware of it until that fateful day that he was found. And so this is something that has been in my heart since my nephew died. And it's something that we're hoping to shed a light on the growing incidence of mental illness and suicide in rural communities across this great country.
What are some of the barriers that are unique to rural residents when it comes to seeking mental health services?
Well, Kate, as you know, there are a number of obstacles that confront people that are living with any kind of an illness in rural America, but especially mental illness. One of the most overriding concerns that many people have is the fact that in small towns, the good news is everybody knows everyone's business. When there's an issue, everyone comes to their aid and jumps in and takes care of whatever the issue is. However, the flip side of that is that everyone knows everyone's business. So if you're dealing with an illness such as mental illness, which is still highly stigmatized, a number of people are concerned that if they start to speak about it or seek help, that the news may spread like wildfire. Our contention, and certainly my family's experience since my nephew died, is that our healing really began when we started talking about it. There are countless stories out there, sadly, that other families, such as my own, have told us about losing loved ones to mental illness. And so we're hoping that by giving people an opportunity and a platform to talk about what they have been through and their family has been through, that the stigma that still exists around mental illness will eventually go away. Unlike cancer, unlike diabetes, unlike cardiovascular disease, which are all illnesses, of course, there is still a feeling in many parts of this country, especially in rural America, that mental illness is not really an illness.
And what role does Rural Minds play in improving mental health resources in these rural areas?
So what we're hoping to do is to become the informed voice of mental illness specifically in rural areas, and to ensure that many of the resources that already exist are made available to the people that live in farming communities and fishing villages across this country. We're in an emergency situation. So we wanted to ensure that we weren't duplicating efforts that already existed, because there is no time for that, and that would be wasteful. But in fact, we're trying to ensure that these resources that do exist find their ways into the hands of the people that need them in small towns across the country.
And how can we all work to help improve mental health resources for those of us in rural America?
The main need that rural communities need to ensure that mental illness is looked at as an illness, and that people that need help feel comfortable in getting that help, is to be compassionate, to be empathetic, to understand that bipolar disorder is as much of a disease as is diabetes. And once we tackle that stigma, and once we give people the opportunity and the permission to seek help and to talk freely about their illness, just like many of us talk about COVID right now, that's when the healing will begin in this country. And that's when we will see this pandemic hopefully start to slow down and subside. We all have stories to tell. We all know people that have struggled, but we don't always feel comfortable talking about it. And as I said, in my own family situation, our healing began when we decided at my nephew's funeral that we were going to talk in great detail about what had led to his death. And that opened the floodgates, not only within my family, but within our community, to have other families feel the same freedom to finally tell their story that is hopefully leading to acceptance.
Jeff, thanks for sharing your story and for your work in this important matter. If you or someone you know is suicidal or in emotional distress, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. And starting in July, you can also dial 988 on your cell phone for 24/7 support. In addition, you can also find a compilation of free mental health resources at ruralminds.org. Still to come on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll introduce you to an operation in Georgia that is working to improve their land for future generations. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Cattle producers across the country work hard to care for their animals and their land. The USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service is there to help. Find out how you can work with NRCS to develop a conservation plan for your operation. Find possible funding resources for implementing conservation practices, or get free expert advice on ways to improve your farm or ranch. Visit the website nrcs.usda.gov today.
These are the pennies it costs for Alticid IGR protection, making it one of the best values in the market, designed specifically for fighting hornflies on pasture. As a supplement, Alticid IGR is part of what you're already doing, and as a feed-through, what your cattle are always doing. Take shelter from the swarm for just 2 to 3 cents per animal per day. That's just $4.50 per animal per season. For hornfly protection that has been performing for over 40 years with no known resistance. Alticid IGR.
If you're connected with the beef cattle business, then you should like the NCBA page on Facebook. The NCBA Facebook page shares photos, news, and valuable information about the beef cattle industry. You can also follow the NCBA Twitter feed at Beef USA. So stay in touch with NCBA on Facebook and Twitter.
The The Environmental Stewardship Award program recognizes the nation's best cattle and livestock operations for their outstanding stewardship practices and conservation achievements. These regional winners are dedicated to maintaining and improving their lands for future generations. Let's take a look at the Region 2 recipient from Georgia.
Vaughn Farms in Georgia has been producing Angus cattle, Bermuda hay, and timber for more than 60 years. James Vaughn represents the second generation to live and work on the family's farm, and today he runs the operation with his wife Beth and sons Matthew and Jordan.
My dad moved here when he was 14 in 1932, and I came home in 1982, and ever since then we committed to expanding the cattle operation and trying to rebuild the parts that had run down at the old farm at the home place and expand it every way we could. And my sons have kept expanding it, and they understand what it takes to sustain this place. Keep the cattle healthy, keep the grass healthy, keep the soil healthy. All of that is part of being able to sustain yourself on the land, and they understand that real well.
The Vaughn family has learned over the years their land is best suited for grass and pine trees instead of cotton and row crops. This helps hold the valuable topsoil in place and keeps it out of the nearby streams.
This farm has two streams running through it, and on the north side of these pastures and on the south side. And those creeks provide the water system for the town of Forsyth and also for the city of Macon, which is only about 25 miles south of here. And as rolling as this land is, if it's not in good grass cover like we're standing in now, it's going in the streams. And so it's really important that we conserve the soil with good grasses, and the best utilization of these kind of grasses we have here, in my opinion, are the cattle.
The Vaughns worked with the Natural Resources Conservation Service to create a grazing plan that ensures the cows move frequently, which allows pastures to have more time to rest and recover.
I think rotational grazing is really important for us, especially in the southeast with our grasses. We'll move them from that pasture to the next, and then to the next one from there, so that grass can come back and the ground can recover from cows walking on it, and also you don't have quite the amount of runoff and stuff you get with cattle walking on it all the time. Everything just kind of gets to recover and reset before the cows come back.
In order for land to stay productive, it needs to be utilized to its best capability, and in our part of the state, that's grazing. Keeping cows moving is the best conservation practice a producer can have in protecting their water quality and improving the watershed.
We want the nutrients to be here, and we want the soil to be here, and we want to build up the organic matter in the soil where it'll hold the moisture, where it'll be spongy, it'll bring in the moisture and it'll stay there. So we can grow grass and grow high quality beef from the grass. And it also, when we do soil testing and check the organic matter in the soil, it's up. The soil's in good shape, and that's what sustains us, all of us in the cattle business. The soil and the grass, that's what we're really about.
One major project took place in 2007 on the part of the operation known as the Talmadge Place. Vaughn Farms partnered with a variety of groups to convert this 650-acre area from a pine tree farm into pastures for cattle.
We had a disaster with that plantation in that a root rot fungus got in the trees and they started dying. So I said, well, the other thing we know how to do is grow grass, so let's start pushing up stumps and planting grass. And my son Matthew and a couple of helpers, they built all this fence and they planted all this grass. They supervised putting all these waterers in. They stuck with it through thick and thin to make this what it is.
It's amazing what I can do over there by myself, the way they set that place up with the lanes only having one, working facility. I can go over there, or me and one other person can go over there and do a whole day's job that on this side or in some of our other farms would take a group of 4 or 5 people to start with.
Converting this property from timber track into quality Bermuda to graze and harvest hay off of is quite an undertaking. And what they have as a result is some very high quality pastures, some very high quality hay fields, and they're extremely good neighbors because of their conservation habits.
The fact that the trees got sick, maybe that was all part of a bigger plan, but it's worked out for us. But once you come into 650-acre tract of land and convert it from cut-over timberland to what you see here today, that in and of itself is a long-term commitment. You're planning for it to be used and sustained over the years.
At Vaughn Farms, they know meeting their sustainability goals is important to their long-term survival, which is why, as the farm expands, the Vaughn family makes sure their focus on environmental stewardship remains consistent as well.
Sustainability will have to stay at the forefront of everybody's mind, or else the place isn't going to be here. We've got to be mindful of everything we do, partly because if you do something to potentially harm the land, it's not only bad for the land, it's bad for your profitability. We need this land to produce for us and for the cows.
When I'm out here and I look around this land, I think this is home, our little part of paradise. And there's nothing more important to any of us out here than looking after this soil and these cattle and this land, because we kind of feel like that's what we were put here to do.
If you'd like to find out more about these Environmental Stewardship Award winners, see photos and videos, and even learn how to nominate someone for the award, visit the website environmentalstewardship.org.
Well, animal nutrition, without question, is one of the cornerstones of any successful cattle operation. And since 1927, Kent Feeds has been helping cattle producers across America design an animal nutrition program specifically for their operation. With us from Kent Feeds is Brandon Cook. And Brandon, thank you as always for being with us. Let's talk about some of the new products you folks have available for cattlemen and women out there.
Yeah, it's a really exciting year for Kent Nutrition Group, especially for the history, as you mentioned. We're coming into the marketplace this year with a brand new branding of our beef products, including Kent Quality Beef. And that's a lot of new products, from new fescue focused minerals down to really specific and targeted lick tubs to help the cows produce at an optimal level for those producers, as you mentioned.
Now, what am I hearing about this new Energy Last product line you guys are now offering?
Yeah, so Energy Last has been in the industry for several years, and we've just revamped that. And one of the most exciting things that I think is gonna kind of shift the mindset on lick tubs, low moisture blocks, is a product called Energy Last 25 AN Energy. What that is it's 25% protein, but it's a high fat tub at over 8%. And that's coming from a steam flaked soybean. That's a patented process where we take a raw soybean, steam flake that retains the protein. It also retains the fat, which means you're gonna provide a really nutritious product that's giving both energy and protein to that cow herd, particularly in those times of pre-breeding and high demands on nutrition.
Well, I think that's exactly what cattle producers are looking for, especially given everything going on with the industry right now. So what makes it so unique and maybe different from some of the other products out there? And then is it designed specifically for one type of operation versus another?
Sure, yeah. So it is a really complete product that's gonna provide protein. It's also going to provide fat in a modified protected route. Some of that's going to be escape protein that's going to go straight as an energy source to that animal. It also has really nice components like organic trace minerals in the form of amino acid complexes, which are highly bioavailable for that cow herd. It also has a product called Beta Moss, which helps with gut integrity, immune support, and pathogen binding. So I really love it in a pre-calving, pre-breeding operation, but when you look at that nutrition profile from protein and energy, the performance of animals on that tub speaks for itself.
Well, if the animal isn't healthy, it's gonna be hard to be profitable, right?
That's the truth. There's nothing closer to that right there. If that animal's not eating and healthy, then it's not gonna be producing and putting profit back.
Hey, finally, Brandon, let's talk about Kent Quality Feed. We can't forget to mention that.
Exactly. Kent Quality Beef is our go-to-market this year of showing not just products. Again, we've been in the marketplace for over 90 years showing that we are the highest standard from a product portfolio. But when you look at our abilities in the field from our regional salespeople and nutritionists, we really are there to provide a service along with those products, as you mentioned, to tailor it to the operations so that each one with their individual needs can perform and succeed where they desire to be.
That sounds good, and I'm sure it's music to cattle producers' ears that they're getting a lot more than just a product from you folks at Kent Feeds. You're getting a program, and more importantly, you're getting a solid and lasting relationship. For all the details, you can visit them online at kentfeeds.com.
Weeds will rob me of my investments. The weeds are not palatable to cows. They will not eat them, or if they do eat them, some of them may be toxic. So there's a return on investment by allowing there to be more grass available to be grazed by the cattle.
It can be tough to keep up with all the issues that impact the beef cattle business. That's why NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen is dedicated to bringing you valuable news, information, and education. The goal is to give you the knowledge you need to make the best decisions for your operation. So if you're looking for in-depth coverage of the beef industry and the issues that matter to you, don't miss Cattlemen to Cattlemen, debuting every week on RFD TV and on YouTube.
Pasture to plate. When it comes to creating a better future for the beef industry, we're all in this together.
You know, whether you're buying or selling, the agricultural real estate market right now is a hot commodity. And with us to talk more about the opportunities out there for farmers and ranchers, and certainly the many others, are Wayne Cockrell and Bernie Utridge from Icon Global. And Bernie, I want to start with you. Let's tell our folks a little bit more at home about your company.
Yeah, thanks, Russell. So Icon Global is a national and international high-end ranch sales company. That's what we cut our teeth on, and that's what we do.
It's an opportunity, as we mentioned, for a lot of folks who may be interested in taking advantage of what some of those real estate markets are doing and some of those properties out there. Wayne, and there are some dandies.
Absolutely, Russell. We have the historic Turkey Track Ranch located in the Panhandle of Texas. It's a jewel of the Panhandle. 2,200 animal unit, 80,000 acres under one fence. Just the diversity with wildlife, cattle, pivots, it's got everything. We also have the Elkhart Ranch, which is about 2 hours north of here, 6,100 acres, 2,000 animal units, a complete different part of the world, different cattle operation. But both of those places are just they're iconic, opportunities.
And of course, we're just mentioning a couple of your portfolio on this program.
Absolutely. Those are just two of what Icon Global has to offer right now.
When it comes to buying and selling agricultural real estate, Bernie, of course, one of the big questions for folks is how are we going to finance this stuff? And you have the answer because you have a good and deep relationship with our friends at Capital Farm Credit.
I do, and I have, and they're integral to, and have been integral to doing a lot of the deals that we've become famous for. The Wagner Ranch, for example, 535,000 acre ranch that we're involved in marketing around the world several years ago, all the way up to last year to Alcoa's Sandow Lakes Ranch, just outside of Rockdale near Austin, Texas, and a lot of deals in between. And we have a process and a system to what we sell and how we sell, and an approach to the market. And a part of that approach is utilizing Capital Farm Credit, and we use those guys right up front. Because first thing, the golden rule of selling real estate is who's the money, where's the money, how's the money? And those guys, they're the qualifier, right? That's the barrier of entry to selling the iconic ranches that we sell and representing the people that we represent around the world. So it all starts with the money, and so it all starts with Capital Farm Credit, and most of the deals end with Capital Farm Credit.
Well, our friends at Farm Credit are some of the most trusted in the business for sure. As we look at the rest of 2022, what's your outlook when it comes to the agricultural real estate market?
Oh, look, it's nothing but blue sky. The market is strong. It's been strong, really strong for the last 2 or 3 years, and it's appreciating. There's no end in sight for the types of properties that we do. I think the market will steady off in about a year or so, but You know, the world has changed, and the need and wants and the requirements of buying a ranch, it's not just about cows and horses anymore. It's about, you know, carbon credits, it's about solar energy, it's about wind energy, it's about tech. You know, so there's a lot more that goes into and comes out of rural ranch real estate than traditionally has met the eye, and that's a specialty, and that's what we do.
Absolutely, well said. Let's wrap things up with Wayne talking about Icon Global and your company's relationship with organizations like the National Cattlemen's Beef Association and certainly the countless others, and not just here in Texas.
Oh, we're absolutely honored to get to support the American cattleman, American rancher, the cattle industry, and so, you know, anytime we get an opportunity to support NCBA or cattle raisers, in our case being in Texas, we absolutely do. And I think one thing too is not only financially, but personally, my time, I serve on the board of directors with the Texas Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association. I'm the chairman of the Membership Development Committee, and I also serve on the Tax and Credit Committee with NCBA. So, you know, we're involved. We're involved in the cattle industry. You know, we have to have the ranchers and the environmental stewardship that they do. We want to be a part of that, and certainly we're honored to get to be a part of that.
Well, it sounds like you're doing a great job at it, and both of you and your company are very well rooted in the U.S. beef cattle industry. Again, for all the details, whether you're buying or selling and want to take advantage of this awesome, red-hot agricultural real estate market, you can find more information about Icon Global online by visiting www.icon.global.
Did you miss a recent episode of Cattlemen to Cattlemen? Then visit and subscribe to our YouTube page. Whether you're looking for educational segments or producer profiles or market updates, you'll find all of this and more at youtube.com/Cattlemen to Cattlemen. That wraps up this edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks so much for spending time with us. And we'll see you again next week right here on RFD TV.